We first detected stage 6 people rising up way back in 2007 when servers started to exhibit ownership on a very different level. They were no longer just giving to people with their hands. They were seeing people with their hearts. Now, how did that transformation happen? It certainly wasn't us recruiting people to become small group leaders. Again, this happened naturally in the context of serving others faithfully for a season and having experienced how God had used them to enrich others. When that happens, we invariably will see them ready to mature from giving to nurturing. What's the telltale sign? They'll come up to you and say, for some reason, people are coming to me with their problems and trusting me with their struggles. I would spend time listening to them and I would feel their pain. I really want to help them, but I just don't know what to say. I feel inadequate. I think I need training. And that's when we know this person is ready to be trained to lead others, whether it's one-on-one or leading a small group, because we see that they're willing to make personal sacrifices in order to build up others. We then offer them small group leaders training, whether it's for one-on-one or in a context of a small group, and teach them how to teach others, basically, where the spiritual adult can live up to the calling that they have received from God, that is, to be a disciple maker. Over the years, we've spent much effort in ensuring that we train our stage 6 leaders to lead others to Jesus and not to themselves. You know, it's all too easy and tempting for people to lead others to themselves by consoling and maybe sometimes in the face of sin to look the other way or to play nice and stay popular. It's really a protective mechanism if you think about it. And that's when they fall into the danger of becoming a false prophet who tickle the people's ears. And that's something we have to be very, very careful about. And so we take extra pains to make sure that our stage 6 leaders are trained to discern the enemy scheme in their own lives and the lives of others, especially those that are entrusted to them, to their care, and coach them to how to overcome. The goal of a faithful leader is not to produce faithful followers for themselves, but for God. And in stage 6, they learn to recognize root causes of problems and hidden sins and are challenged to expose the sins lovingly in a relationship of trust and lead others to repentance and restoration to God. So let's summarize the traits of a stage 6 person. We at the Bridge call them purple tags, which actually symbolizes priesthood, where now they're truly functioning as pointers to God. You know, every believer, you and I, we're all called to be priests, but due to spiritual immaturity, many never take up that call. Instead, they're burdened by their past, weighed down by sin, torn apart by division, discouraged by hurts, sidelined by their own failures, distracted by their own agenda, and lost without vision. And that's why we have this progressive development from the inside out, from the foundations to the final product, from infancy to adulthood, in order to make sure that when a believer rises up to serve, he or she has learned the necessary lessons and have passed the critical tests. 1 Timothy talks about that, right? The need for testing for church leaders by talking about deacons and overseers passing the test before giving the responsibility of leading. So testing is biblical and necessary. And so all this to say, in order to understand a stage 6 person, we don't simply look at the traits in stage 6, but we understand that they're built upon other lessons that must be learned in the previous stages. So a stage 6 leader is spiritually nurturing as a person, and they're also leading in various capacities, whether it's leading someone else or in corporate worship, according to their gifting, of course, in small groups, in the sense that they care about the growth of another. And they're concerned about the other person's relationship with the Lord. And a stage 6 person is willing to make personal sacrifices by taking personal resources and time out to listen and to teach others towards spiritual maturity. A spiritual adult is someone who is not preoccupied by their own comfort or desires, and they're not limited by their own inabilities or goals. Rather, they look beyond themselves to see what God has in store for this other person and submit themselves as God's tool to fashion and to shape this other person into God's image, whether it's through teaching or exhortation. And exhortation is where they speak the truth in love. And this may be really hard and challenging because when we speak prophetically, sometimes in the spirit of loving correction towards this other person, we actually risk misunderstandings and counterattacks and perhaps setbacks, right? Sometimes if the other person is not receptive, it could mean a lashback or even the end of that relationship. So we have to make sure that the Stage 6 leader is trained to teach faithfully, to speak artfully, to pray strategically, to lead effectively, and above all, to love unconditionally. And that's all in our Stage 6 leadership training classes. If you're already leading today, whether in a small or large setting, we welcome you to take this class, but be sure to go through the previous classes as a foundation and setup.